Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready? All right, greetings and welcome to Live Talk. I am your host, Dr. Jeremiah, alongside my two co-hosts, Minister Samuel.
Welcome back.
And the spiritual ambassador, Yike Ezekiel.
Peace.
All right. Before we go any further, let's go to our general statement and disclaimer. General statement. Live Talk is proudly powered by TBS Goodwill, Builders of the Highway Foundation, and Men of Purpose. Together, we're bringing about awareness to the everyday challenges facing individuals, communities, and our nation. We tell our stories, listen to yours, and always respect different perspectives. Want to share your voice? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com to be a guest, or if you would like to contribute to our mission, purpose, go to livetalkorl.com to give a donation. Disclaimer. Information provided during this event and others to come does not constitute the official opinion of Live Talk or its affiliate entities. It is strongly recommended that viewers seek independent expert advice regarding any topics discussed, as legal requirements differ significantly across jurisdictions and are subject to frequent changes. If you have questions or concerns, you can always email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook and or Instagram at livetalkorlando. All right, welcome back. We always have to get that out of the way. My brothers, how are you doing? Starting with you, Minister.
I'm doing great, man. Wonderful week. We kind of continue in this, we had a wonderful, like last month, coming out of Juneteenth.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm still representing.
Yes, sir.
Because we have all of those other ones. I think, hey, we can keep on ours for a little bit.
Right. Indeed.
So instead of instead of thinking about July 4th, I'm thinking back about Juneteenth.
That's right. Indeed. Brother Yike Ezekiel.
I'm magnificent. As I said, it's time to dwell on your own culture right now. It's this season, since everybody's out of school and everything. It gives you adequate time to really understand the purpose of Juneteenth and how to apply it in your daily life.
Yes, sir. It's always a beautiful thing when you can wake up and to another day looking to make a change and a difference in the world. As we share this information today, we're hoping that someone can be able to get this information, to be able to, not only take it in themselves, but be able to share it to generations coming after us. So always a beautiful time, when we can come together as brothers and share information. But like you said, Juneteenth was very powerful. Had some great events that we went to, broke some bread with some very interesting and intriguing people. So, it's always a great thing when we can come together like that. All right. So family, with that being said, we're just going to give you a rundown of the show today. First, we'll have the minister word of today. Then right after that, we'll take a short commercial break, and then we'll come back with our main topic. Our main topic today is Dear Graduates. Oh, no. That's not our main topic today. What is our main topic today? Oh, graduates. Now what? Living with purpose after the cap and gown. We did that in our last show, Dear Graduate, what I wish I knew at 22. So we in the second part of this show. Then right after that, we'll go to a commercial break. And then we have some rural or community news that we want to talk about. And then we'll end with a motivational quote or reading from the host. So with no further ado, Minister, what is the word of today?
Okay, the word of today is going to be exceptional. And exceptional, by definition, is unusual, not typical, unusually good, outstanding, better than average. Exceptional is deviating from the norm, above or below average intelligence. Exceptional, being intellectually gifted, much greater than usual, especially in skill, intelligence, and quality. Some synonyms are superior, rare, unique, and uncommon. And a quote that I found, and this was from Oprah Winfrey, she said, "There is no such thing as failure. Failure is just life trying to move us in another direction." So in seeking to be exceptional, we want to surpass what is common, usual, or expected. Exceptional.
Right. Well, thank you for that word of today, Minister. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zodi toothpaste. Zodi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zodi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zodi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at noistore.com.
All right. So today we do have a special guest that's joining us in the studio. He joined us in our last show, and we want to bring him back because he has a very unique perspective when it comes to just being able to move from grad school, not grad school, but be able to move from receiving a high school diploma or coming from homeschooling. Let me talk about that. Coming from homeschooling, getting a high school diploma, going into college, and now teaching at a college. So we want to bring back today to the show, Brother Shemuel Russ. And brother, and like I said, as I was speaking, and I was just thinking about, your accolades, and I was like, wow. I said, this brother came from homeschool, got a high school diploma, went into college, and now teaching at a college. Am I right?
I was going to let me clarify. I advise or counsel at a college. I don't actually, I'm not quite at the degree level to be able to teach quite yet. I'm working on that right now.
Okay. All right. But he is a student, a teacher, and a scholar. I have to say that. So we want to welcome you back to the show because your perspective was very deep. And I believe, like with a lot of the information that you shared, a lot of people can benefit from this information. So today we want to kind of continue that, and we're going to talk about grads. Now what? We talked about what we wish we knew at 22, but now we're talking about now what? Living with purpose. Talking about purpose after the cap and ground. So I'm going to open up the flow, and I'm going to let one of my brothers probably just go into just asking you the first question that we want to go into today. So I don't know if Minister, you want to start off?
I would like to, because with the introduction is something that coming from the last show, and it's kind of important when we mentioned homeschooling. I did want to mention that is, and before we move forward, like how can parents of some homeschool students prepare their child or children for college?
That's a good question, because it depends on what you're talking about, because there's kind of two perspectives, right? On one hand, there's the credentialing, like what is it that you need to do logistically, credentials wise, to make sure that your student can get into a college and be fine. And then the other part is kind of the more kind of social, unspoken things you need to teach your child. So on the credential part, one thing parents of homeschool students need to understand is that for the most part, obviously some states vary, you're going to need some type of either high school diploma or GED in order to get into college. Your time at homeschool, sorry, as great as it might have been, it just will not cut it. So depending on what your family dynamic looks like, you need to figure out, okay, we want to homeschool for whatever reason it is, culture, education, whatever the reason is. What is the off ramp from there? That's the point that I think is really important that a lot of homeschool parents, if you want to homeschool, it's fine, but it can't be an endpoint. At some point, your child's going to need some type of credential in order just to move them forward or give them a better edge to society. So what my recommendation would be, and this is what my parents did, is once your child gets around the age of like 15, 16, you really need to start having that conversation around, okay, what are the next steps? Are we going to enroll you in a charter school that is accelerated, that you can get your degree in a year or two? Are we going to just have you prepare and take a GED to then get that to get into? So that would be my main advice, that around the age of 15 to 16, you really need to start having that conversation around what are the actual next steps in order to get them able to actually legitimately, qualify for college or trade school, whatever else it is. On the social aspect, I think it's just a really important conversation to have as a family. I think one, to ground yourself on remembering why it is y'all homeschooled, right? For a lot of parents, often culture is a big reason. They might have disagreements with what's taught in school and school cultures, and that's fine. What I would simply tell you is that while it's fine you made that decision, this is the world that we exist in. So whether you agree with it or not, you have to learn to operate in that world. So I think it's really important to have a conversation with the family about why is it that we homeschooled, and then understanding with our family culture and dynamic, where are the weak points that our students, our children might experience, right? If you were, to give my personal example, we were homeschooled due to religious and cultural reasons. So we didn't often hang out with too many people outside of our religion or culture too much. So what was actually very helpful for me before I started going into college, my parents actually put me in martial arts school, where I was there 5 days a week outside of high school, where I kind of got to learn about just like being around other cultures, being around other people, learning, just how to operate, right? So I would really say those are the two biggest points, is making sure that the credentials are in place, preparing for that around 15, 16, and then just having a real conversation around where are the social or political weak points that our children might experience, and what can we do to alleviate or overcome those issues?
I like that. Because I think another part of that is just parents knowing their limits, because I just recall myself, I remember with one of my sons, and this separate from, I think, sports is education as well. And you have to know, like, when it comes to a certain age group, like how far, like, what are your limits? How much can you teach before you then hand that child off to, someone that's a little bit more qualified to teach them at that next level. So I get that. That's a great point.
I just want to follow up with that, actually, because I experienced this during my homeschooling, where obviously for the first few years, obviously it was just direct. My mother was teaching us. Obviously we're in like grade school. It became simple. She quickly realized when she got into that middle school time, I was like, whoa, okay, some of these fractions and multiplications that I did 20 years ago, I'm not quite as apt on, which is what eventually led us to actually do Florida Virtual School. So that is extremely important, that a parent needs to kind of reflect on themselves and be humble, like, what can I actually teach my child and where are my limits? Because what you don't want to do is have this idea that you can teach everything, and then you teach your child all through high school, and then by the time they get there and they're taking their SATs or GPs, they're like well behind because the parent didn't have the aptitude to teach them. So that's definitely something that parents need to be humble and not selfish about when it comes to what they're trying to teach their kids.
Geometry, physics, and even like, great point about sports. And you learn a lot from sports, but it's a whole lot different teaching that child at 8 or 9. But when they get 15 or 16, their speed, their strength, and their agility, it's like, oh, I can't handle them no more.
And not just that, their emotional state, state of mind, at that point in time. And then your emotional state of mind, like, listen, I can't deal with that right now. So, yeah, you say you want to comment on that?
Well, these are excellent points, because every parent has to know themselves. Mm-hmm. They have to know where their skill set is. If, as the brother just said, if he's taking martial arts and I'm a blue belt as a parent and he's excelled at that area, now he has to move up to the next belt and I ain't got that skill set. Mm-hmm. I have to, look around and see who is more qualified to be able to teach him, because if not, he's only going to stay at a blue belt. Mm-hmm. That's all. I can only give you what I have.
Right. All right. So moving on to the next question. How can grads avoid comparison while still staying motivated?
Ooh. Oh man. So I think it's actually interesting because I feel like there's almost a misnomer in the question. Because on one hand, there's a common phrase that, comparison is a thief of joy. And there's truth to that. Obviously, if you're constantly comparing yourself to, celebrities, and athletes and basketball players and things like that, well, yeah, that's going to be extremely ego deflating because it's like when you see something and it's almost, if not impossible to get to, it doesn't motivate you because you feel like I'm never going to be able to get there, right? So that's often where people are talking about comparison. On the flip side, when you're using comparison on real world, realistic examples, that is, in my view, where real motivation can come. So I would say, I think in order to not use comparison, to stay motivated, you need to learn to differentiate what are the things you should be comparing yourself to and where you shouldn't. So I think that's really where it's most important. Again, the reason why we have those phrases is because in our society, and we might end up getting to this later, so I don't want to talk too much, but it's extremely common in our society to be blasted with ads about Dior bag and Gucci this and this and that. And then we all know the way the ads work. They got these attractive people drinking and having, and then there's all this, there's like all this research, and those commercials are meant to invoke emotions in us. It's like, oh, if I have that Gucci bag, I'll have friends. If I have that Gucci bag, I'll get love. Like there's so much that goes into that. And like, that's where comparison becomes a thief of joy. Versus if you're comparing yourself like, hey, I'm 22, I graduated, and you're comparing yourself like, okay, I want to have a job out of college making $45,000 with a good salary and internship lined up to better myself. That is a great comparison. Yes. Hey, I can get there. There's something like, okay, I know I have steps. I need to go reach out to mentors. I need to do job applications for decent wages. Like there's steps, and that's where you lead to motivation. So I would say the issue is that you need to make sure you're comparing yourself to reasonable and accurate interpretations of things so that you can be motivated to get there.
Right. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges. We oftentimes try to compare ourselves, as the apple to the orange. It's like, it's not going to work.
You'll never be satisfied because like, I'm never going to be orange like that. I'm never going to be zesty like that. You'll never.
Everybody's not going to be Steve Jobs.
No.
Right.
And the thing, what you need to understand is that because on one hand, it's like, I think there is sometimes a great motivation to want to be great like that. So I don't want to misunderstand that, like, it's obviously 1% of us have to be those people, right? So it's not to say that you should encourage people not to live to their full potential, not to reach for the stars. That's fine and great. But what you don't need to do is base your entire worldview on getting there. Because statistically, it's not likely. Does it mean to not work towards it, not to strive for it? Of course not. But when you're basing your entire self on, I'm not successful if I don't be Steve Jobs by 30, more likely than not, you're going to be extremely disappointed.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, one of the things you need to always do is have realistic goals and try to just be the best that you want. I know logically right now I'm fast physically, but I'm not Usain Bolt fast. So I'm not going to set myself up to go and say, yeah, I'm finna race Usain Bolt and come out on top.
Right.
Because as you said, that set myself up for failure. So I can only say, well, I'm going to race and try to be the best version of myself. So as you say, when you're comparing yourself, it's not so much trying to live up to the qualities or the features that the other person may have. Everybody in my age wanted to be like Michael Jordan, but everybody's not 6'6". Everybody don't have a 50-inch vertical. Right. Everybody wasn't equipped with the innate qualities that this man possessed.
Right.
So you can only, like you say, you can attain to be like Mike. Just don't think you're going to be Mike. So don't become discouraged.
Right. All right, so we're gonna move on to calling clarity and confusion. So the next question here, do one of you brothers want to bring the next question in?
No, yeah, we can follow right in with those. Go right ahead.
Have you ever felt unsure about your calling? Well, first and foremost, do you have a calling? And if you do, have you ever felt unsure about your calling, even while doing good things?
I would say I definitely do have a calling. I would say my calling is to be something, because you called it out, so you're obviously around the money. I would say an educator is my calling. Actually, I've been put it. It's always in the little topic on my resume. Educator is always one up there. Because I find that, regardless of the topic I might be, working on, I just find value being able to, imbue knowledge onto other people, right? So, because I remember when I first started doing charter school, we used to do this thing. We had like 3 sessions we would go to, each 4 hours a day because we were accelerated. And at one point, without even realizing, I would utilize the first 2 sessions for myself, and the third sessions was me being a teacher's assistant, like assisting other students, like unofficially, to the point like other teachers who I've never went to knew my name, would call the other. She's like, "Hey, do y'all have Shim in the room? Can you come help me out?" Like that's how it became, and it was just like a very natural thing. And then same thing when I was in college, leading like tutor groups, which then led me to being advising. So like definitely being an educator is my calling. It definitely took me. It was through college, taking classes, experiences that helped me to learn that. When I didn't know it was my calling, that was tough because when you don't know it's your call, like what is the phrase? You don't know what you don't know, right? So when I didn't know, obviously, like you said, I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do. At the time, I'm thinking I'm going to go into politics. Everyone's telling me I should be a lawyer. So I'm like, oh, that's what everyone's telling me. And that's what I should do, right? For me, it was really helpful. Like, I think it's really, with a calling, it shouldn't be anything that anyone is telling you to do. Like, someone might be telling you to do your calling, but your calling shouldn't come from what someone else is telling you to do. Your calling shouldn't come from what society is pushing you to do. A calling should be, whether it's, from a religious aspect or a spiritual aspect, it should be the innate thing that gives you value, right? And if something truly is your calling, I'm of the belief you will find yourself doing those things in different aspects of your life, regardless of what capacity you're in, right? So to go back to my example, what made me fully, and actually, again, I was in school and they made me do a whole project to like write down my goals. So I kind of cheated. Like I was afforded a project that allowed me to. But when I did that, it was a prompt that it was like, it pretty much like, what is your calling? And I was like, I don't know, what's my calling? And then it was like instructions for us. It was like, reflect back on your life. And it was like, find 2 or 3 things that you always find yourself doing. And it was like, go back from as a childhood, teenager, adult. It was like, what are 2 or 3 things you always find yourself doing? And so I sat there for an hour or 2, just going through my life and everything. And I kept pinpointing. I was like, I'm always helping people. I'm always helping people. I'm always helping people. And then it just all came to me. It was just like, I've never had to question it. I've never had to really think about it. No one ever had to tell me to do it. It just happened. So like, you really want to find something that just kind of, it's like I said, just this innate feeling in you that, like I said, no one should be pushing you to it. No one should be telling you. There should be no pressure. Because like I said, if it's God, whether it's God's calling or nature, it's in you regardless of anything. So
that's right. It's that passion that's within you. Now, the other part of that question was, have you ever felt unsure about your calling?
I mean, so to go into, as I was kind of figuring it out, I definitely doubted myself. So for example, when I kind of realized I want to be an educator, my first thought was to be obviously like a teacher, like a standard teacher. And then I started having doubts about like, how good are my skill sets really that I could teach someone else? Like, cause then that's when then the self-doubt comes. I was like, okay, right. I'm good at math, but could I teach someone else math? I'm good at history because I teach someone else history, right? So that I definitely had some doubts. But again, it kind of, when I came back to the reflection, I realized that I was like, I could have said that to myself about any of those topics, right? I could have told myself I'm good enough at X, but I couldn't. So I kind of just eventually, again, it was a couple of days of like self-doubt. I didn't start like, oh no, let me go back to politics because teaching's too hard. But after just kind of, just letting myself go, it quickly came to realize it was like, this is what, God's calling me to do. There's no reason to push back on it. There's no reason to self-doubt or self-sabotage when I can clearly see the evidence shows that this is what, this is what I need to do.
Okay. Brothers, y'all want to chime in on that? Anything?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things in life for teenagers is to understand what their purpose in life is. And as he said, as parents, you have a tendency to push your child in a particular area, especially young Black males. You get them into sports, you get them into martial arts. So you're hoping that they gravitate toward that and become great at that right there. But at some point, you become a teenager and you realize I'm not pro material. So what am I going to do now? Now my focus has to shift, or you have a career-ending injury in high school. So your focus has to shift now to what am I going to do? So how do I discover what do I like to do? The only thing I like to do is play sports. So what else is it? Even in career day, when different people come in and they ask, hey, I'm a fireman, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. Okay, none of that appeals to me. I just like playing sports. So what am I going to do now that has been taken off the table? And now, as he said, when you do introspection, you look at what gives you drive. What do you have a strong desire to do on a regular basis? Or what could I do even if nobody was going to pay me? What do I like to do? So once they find that particular trait in their life, then it's a matter of, can I get paid for it? Can I make a living off of it? Because even though I like it, there may not be a market for me to sustain myself in doing this right here. And that's where the doubt comes in at. In this day and age, you have a lot of young people, you know, with the social media, they want to create content and things of that nature right there. But can that content pay my bills? And is it good enough for me to be able to, you know, live off of? And if I can't, what am I going to do? And I think that's why a lot of people, when they're graduating or prior to graduation, they have no idea. And then when they graduate, they still have no idea. So they don't know whether they should enroll in college or get some type of trade. So I think that, you know, as parents or as mentors, teachers, we have to help those children learn what it is that may be their calling. You know, put them in an atmosphere that'll help them cultivate knowing who they are, and then they can decide, hey man, as he just said, I like helping other people. So I need to go into some type of field that would allow me to be able to help people on a regular basis.
I'll follow up with that one, kind of in that same vein, but put you on the spot with this one. How can you or how can someone know if their next step is like God's direction? Is it just a good idea, or making it to that next step?
That's hard, because obviously on one hand it's like, if God is calling you to do something, it is a good idea, right? So it's easy. I can easily see it be simple to misconstrue, because the thing is, how can I say this? There are lots of good ideas, but if we're going in this context, there's only one idea that God wants you to do as your calling, right? So I can see it being very easy to misconstrue those two things. I think it would kind of, in a way, go a little bit back to the first point around, you know, if you have people around you who care about you, they're probably pushing you to do good things. Hopefully. Most cases. They're probably pushing you to do good things. So on one hand, for example, it kind of goes back to what we said about differentiating. You know, again, it's fine to obviously take advice from people who you value their opinions and things like that, but not to let that supersede, you know, what's in here. So on one hand, going back to that, is like separating out the noise. So you need to separate out that. And then I think it really, again, kind of goes back to what the brother was saying about like real self-reflection, right? And I think when you self-reflect on something you're doing, it's really easy to come up with, you know, doubts about it, right? It's easy to poke holes in it and things like that. And I think all good ideas, you will be able to find some, but this, but that. I'm of the belief that once you truly find your calling, either you will not be able to have any buts. And if you do have buts, those buts will be rebutted so quickly without you even thinking about it, right? So for me now, when it comes to being an educator, obviously there are those moments where I kind of doubted myself. Oh, maybe I'm not going to do these things. At this point now, like, it's literally so ingrained in me. Like I said, it's on my resumes everywhere. Like, it's so ingrained in me that I'm like, even one time someone asked me, they were like, what do I do? And I accidentally said, I'm an educator. And I was like, well, technically, because like, it's just so innate, right? So I think it really comes down to, between blocking out a lot of the noise, you really have to self-reflect. And whether that's then, if you're obviously a religious person, that's having that conversation with God, one-on-one, keep all that out. Whether you're not a religious person, whether that's just meditating with yourself, like, you really have to self-reflect. And I am of the belief that once you find that thing, it'll be pretty easy, and there won't really be much doubts to put in your head anymore.
Okay.
No, I think when it comes to Sure. When it comes to identifying, I'm making sure my camera's right. But when it comes to identifying, to your point, whether it's God, the Most High, or idea, all the things that you said was great, and we have to know when the Most High is speaking to us. A lot of times we'll know that when the Most High is speaking to us, and we'll know if we just had a good idea that came across our head. But like you said, it's the same as the Most High speaking to us, because he only gives us good ideas. And especially when you're on a journey to really pushing forth your mission, which also turns into that purpose, because that's the destiny that we're trying to reach. I don't want to go past this here, because I know Ezekiel may have a comment on this, so I don't want to go to the next question until I leave this on the floor.
No, y'all pretty much summed that one up right there.
Okay.
The spiritual advisor says we got the seal of approval. We good.
All right. All right. And I was thrown a little bit off at the moment because a couple of things happened here. So just trying to get my clarity back here. But the next question here, what's a time when you had no clear plan, but the Most High showed up anyway?
Ooh, don't want to get too personal, emotional. So a few years back, I had a pretty bad breakup. Living with a girl for years and everything, engaged. It was like a whole thing. And then obviously that relationship did not end so well. And it was a lot of things happened. And, it was rough. It was rough. Like obviously, like I said, because we're living in the apartment together. Then she moves out. So I'm in this apartment that we got together by myself, with all her stuff still around. And it's on, but at the same time, I'm just starting my bachelor's degree at the same time. I just got a new job. So I'm trying to deal with like, okay, I'm now in this apartment that I got with my ex by myself. I see all her stuff around. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to stay focused on school. And it was rough. It was tough. I actually, oddly enough, I actually went through a period before this. I actually wasn't a believer. I kind of stopped being a believer. And it was actually this situation that actually got me back. And the reason for that was that obviously after a breakup, I felt very, it was like, my life's ending, right? Obviously there was all these questions around what is my real value in the world? If she rejected me, who really wants me? It was, all these terrible thoughts. And I can't remember the particular scripture, but it was just something along the lines of like, things come, things pass, and now you're here, right? And it was so simple. And I remember going through kind of a journey of like just reading up on lots of different religious textbooks at the time, just trying to find something to give me grounding, right? And across all of the religious textbooks, I kept coming across like that kind of general central message, right? I remember at one point I kind of was studying Buddhism, and they have these things called the Four Truths or the Four Paths, and it talks about how like there is suffering, there are the causes of suffering, there's the process you get over suffering, and then you come out stronger, right? And it's like just this basic philosophy, and like I kind of just worked on grounding myself in that, remembering that like regardless of what happened with me and this person, I am a valued human being. I'm creating God's image. God loves me. Just like really grounding myself in those things that like what happened to that relationship is unfortunate. But when it comes down to it, what did the book say? That I'm suffering right now. I will go through that process. And not only will I get finished with it, I will come out stronger after, because I've learned lessons. So I actually, it's oddly enough, I actually kind of got back into my spirituality after that situation, because I had to remember that like issues that happen in the physical world, as bad as they are, there is more to our existence, the metaphysical, our spirit, what, powers us. I had to ground myself in that in order to come through what was happening here.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Go ahead.
When you look at, for anybody that's a religious person and reads the Bible, every time the children of Israel deviated and the wrath of God, Yahweh, fell down upon them, that always made them decide that, man, I'm tired of this suffering. I'm tired of this chastening.
You do better.
I'm I'm going to stop the foolishness and let me get back on track. So the scriptures always say that children of Israel will cry out, help us, help us. We know we in the doghouse. What do we need to do to get out of this doghouse? So it seems that one of the methodologies in life is you have to go through trials and tribulations in order to do a temperature check about where you at. And most of the times, everybody already know when they're in a situation or a circumstance occur and they can't do it themselves. That's when they find themselves praying or calling on God, even though they've been MIA for indeterminate amount of time. But you know you need some help. So this is going to get me back, as he said, back on track. It took this, butt whipping to get me on track. So that seems to be the order of life. When you do, and it goes back to what we were just saying, you have to do some soul searching and decide that, okay, could this have occurred just to get me back on track? Is this the lesson I'm supposed to extract out of this situation right here? As they say, there's always a silver lining, no matter how horrible event is in your life. You can always be able to look at it and you can take out some good points, something that will allow you to come out of that stronger, wiser. So I think that, struggle is ordained. That's what I believe. Even a child, when it's being born, it's a struggle to come through the womb. It's a struggle. So I think that allows us to either grow or it's going to show us that, hey, we ain't where we think we need to be.
Nah, great points. Because I tell you, like you said, it's a lot of different spiritual material that you can read that talks about, going through suffering and, and looking at that, the other side of, in the scripture, in Ecclesiastes, it talk about it's a time for everything.
I think that might have been the one I read.
And it probably was, and we just have to know that we're going to go through those times, but we just can't deviate from the plan. The Most High sets a plan for our life, and sometimes what we do, we deviate. And what he does is a part of correction. He takes us through those trials and tribulations so that now we get back online in order with the universe, most may say, but in line with the plan that Yahweh has directed.
It's actually funny you talk about deviating from plan, particularly because when all this happened, before I kind of had my reawakening, I was definitely about to just give up on most the things. Before this happened, I had went out of state to do some teaching before I got my job now. I was about to cancel that. I wasn't going to do that. I was about to just go back home with my parents, do a simple life. Because again, it was I'm not worth all these things, right? So definitely, if it wasn't for me kind of getting my grounding back and realizing the value that I have as, a child of God and a spiritual being, I would have, my plans in life, I don't know where I would have been. If I would have went through with what to me seemed rational at the time, right? At the time, I'm hey, I'm not in a good space right now. I don't think I should take on these opportunities. I probably don't have the ability to. I don't know where I would be if I threw out all those goals and plans I had because of what was going through at that moment.
Perfect. Well, we happy you didn't, because you probably wouldn't be sitting in front of us if you would. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about purpose and performance. Minister, you want to go into that?
Yeah, we can jump in. Purpose, performance. So why do you think so many young adults equate purpose with a paycheck, if you can understand, or if you want to share something on that?
Yeah, point. So I would say it's twofold. One is an inherent thing that exists in our society, and then the other is kind of trends and things that exist in different patterns, but is really strong recently. So on one hand, obviously, we live in a capitalistic society. Who doesn't understand in a basic sense, the inherent motivation behind a capitalist society is to acquire profit above all else. And the hope and belief is that by acquiring profit above all else, natural market forces will make sure that everything works out the best. That's the basic idea of a capitalist society. And in a lot of ways, that does work out when it comes to, your phone, right? Most people believe you can try different phones out and then test them, and the majority will eventually lean on the right one. So that's the basic premise of it. What that often leads to at the same time is, because the inherent point of our society is profit and value, we then tie human value to the profit or the productivity that people make, right? And so something I thought of as an example is like, obviously we have all these numbers on, GDP per capita, average wage. We're always comparing people based on the number of money that comes into your account based on your average wage or salary and things like that. And that in and of itself obviously misses so many other points, right? So if, let's say you had a car sale, great car salesman, he's really good at sales. He makes $150,000 plus commission because he's just that good. And then the flip side, you have someone who works at a local nonprofit making only $25,000 a year teaching inner city kids. On a baseline, it looks like that guy's got it made. Makes $150K. He pays all, he provides, people even say, oh, he makes more money, so he pays taxes. All these things that we attribute to someone, their value because they make money. On the flip side, it's like, well, if you actually pay attention to that guy's record, he actually sells cars at extremely high interest rates to vulnerable populations who actually can't afford. And it's like the actual reverberating effects of what that guy does are way terrible. And then on the flip side, you have the person who volunteers at the place making only $20,000. He's providing education to inner city kids who, if it wasn't for him, would not be getting the education. And some of those kids might end up being the next basketball players, the next engineers. So like on a baseline, it seems like, oh yeah, in our capitalist society, that person who's selling the cars, he's it. And the person who's just volunteering, what does he do? Especially when it comes to then more parts where, let's say you have the person he spends his time volunteering and that's his choice, it's his passion, but it doesn't make a lot of money. And because of that, he has to be on government services just to subsidize himself a little bit. Our society, in a very natural way, will attack that man because he takes out an additional $10,000 in services while he's literally providing for our youth. But will question nothing about the man who makes money off literally the suffering and the misfortunes of others. So on one hand, just our society is based on an idea that money equals value, i.e. if you don't make a lot of money, you're not valuable. So there's that. Then in a more kind of recent phenomena, there's the, social media comparing yourself with the Joneses, obviously, where we see, I can't count how many times the amount of ads I see of people my age, because the algorithm knows that I'm 27, so it's always going to show me people look about 25 to 30. The amount of ads I see with people my age who, I make $100K a month, bro, join my course to do X. I was making $1 million by the time I was 19. Like the amount of content I see on that is insane. So that if I didn't know better, I would think, man, what am I out here doing, working honest living, helping people in a college? I could be making $100K selling a course. But then to go back to the initial conversation about comparing yourself, let's do a little digging. So there's two things you find out. On one hand, across the board, how many 19-year-olds, 25-year-olds actually make over 100K? Oh, less than 0.1%. So I know that algorithm is showing me the most tiny minority that even exists. And then if you go into it a little deeper, you find out that a lot of the people on social media, there's a whole thing around, since this is their job, they don't actually pay for those things. They're renting it and then they're hoping to write off on taxes, and they're creating a life that they're actually trying to sell you. And they actually haven't really done that much for themselves. Their entire product is, hey, I rented a bunch of stuff. I'm going to show you my stuff. And now if you buy my course, you'll get my stuff. But it's like, wait, you only got this stuff because we bought your course, bro. Like it's so circular. And so that is like, you see it all the time, honestly. And it's honestly crazy. And it honestly goes back to like, in order to separate yourself from that, you got to ground yourself in reality and numbers. Like what is someone my age actually supposed to be doing? What statistically would be a relevant, metric to meet versus all the BS that you see getting fed to you on social media 24/7.
Wow.
That was a good answer.
I'm telling you, that was a great answer.
But I do want to add to that particular about your value being tied in your paycheck. You see that in the dating world.
Ooh.
In the dating world, if you're driving a Honda and somebody pulls up in a Corvette or a Lambo, automatically you're going to get overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get overlooked because everything is predicated on the difference between these cars equates to the difference in my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So if a female sees a man with the Honda, okay, I'm gonna have a very basic life. Mm-hmm. But if I get with this guy with this Lambo, I'm going on trips. I'm living a life.
I'm telling you.
So as a young male in your mind when you're seeing this on social media that in order to have a particular type of woman, I have to have a particular type of tax bracket that I'm in. So now this is where my value determines my worth, because, okay, I got McDonald's skill set, but I want the Lambo women.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is how, if I'm not grounded, it's easy for me to get off track to try to start doing other things to get Lambo money. And this society has been set up like that right there, and it's leading the youth astray with, hey, in order to have the materialism, I have, it determines who I am. So if I don't got the Gucci, I don't got the Louis on, I'm going to get picked at. I'm a bum. It beats down the self-esteem, so the materialism leads to the bullying with a lot of the children in this day and age. And if they're not emotionally equipped to deal with that right there, then some of them will try to dumb themselves down to fit in. That the peer pressure is serious in any age group with teenagers. So they don't want to do anything to stand out that'll make them the oddball. So they'll start fitting in, even if it's changing who they are. Or they're going to try, as I said, to get whatever is necessary to bring their game
by any means necessary.
Right, correct. And this is why we know that the prison systems are being fueled on a regular basis, because the youth are making choices to be able to get the materialism that they need, that they feel will give them the lifestyle that they want, or the prestige in the community that they want. Nobody's going to hang out with me if I'm a bum or if I'm low budget. But if I got all the materialism, everybody going to gravitate to it. We know the saying is, when you have money, everybody want to be your friend. When you down and out, don't nobody want to be around you. So with that type of mindset, it's easy to see why the youth ties their identity to how much they make. And that's why I ain't gonna work no 9 to 5. No, 9 to 5 ain't gonna get me what I need in life. So I'm finna get out here and I'm finna be a trap guard, or I'm finna be an athlete, or I'm finna be an entertainer. And that's where they pour all their energy in. And then, as you say, you look at the stats. How many youth become professional players? How many people become entertainers or actors, or these jobs that'll get them to 6 figures or better? It's extremely minute amount. So realistically, you have a better shot at becoming that 9 to 5 dude. Just make it the way you study, where you can become a lawyer, a doctor, something like that. That's a 9 to 5 that'll put you in that bracket, that'll be able to get you whatever type of materialism or woman, if you're male, that you want, or female if you're looking for a man in that particular tax bracket. So we're being bombarded with that. The youth is being flooded. I mean, it's a tsunami when they look on social media, of what's needed in order to be a part of the high society in your neighborhood.
Just a quick comment, because I remember I watched a video one time and it was honestly baffling to me. It's this girl, she's a psychologist and she has a YouTube channel, and she brings on young women to basically break myths they have about men and money. And the things you see on there are crazy. She brought some women on. These are all women between 21 and 28. She asked them first, she was like, what do you believe is the average salary for a man your age? And the numbers these girls said were so off base. It's like, it's no wonder. And I say this not in a mean way towards the women, because all of them are obviously single and looking for men. But it's like, I was like, if that's y'all expectations, it's no reason you're single. This 21-year-old girl, she said she thinks an average 21-year-old makes $102,000 a year.
Wow.
The 27-year-old girl said she thinks average man makes $200,000 per year. They said they think over half of men over 25 make more than 6 figures, when it's actually only 25%. Like, their perspective, it was so warped. And it was such a clear example of, like, as the brother's talking about, like, these women have been bombarded with advertisements of this idea that, every man is a lawyer making, $120K. And if they're not, they're a loser. Because then the follow-up question, it was like, what's the lowest salary you would date a man with? And most of the girls, they gave answers that were just like terrible. One girl was like, I don't care how much money he makes. Obviously, I want him to make enough to support me and whatever we need. But like, I care about who he is. I was like, you awesome. These girls were all like, I need my man to make at least 80K. I need my man to make at least 120. This that. And then this girl was just like, here's the actual stats of the wages men y'all age make. And these girls were like dumbfounded. And it was like you saw them reflecting on like, man, I guess I need to change my approach. Like it's insane how much like our worldview is shaped by like the things that we're advertised to and how much that shapes. Like, again, these girls are living in complete different realities, literal different realities than what actually exists.
Yeah. That's because what, I don't know if it was a song or a movie. I hate to put it out. What is it? Get rich or die trying. Like you literally is what for, especially like say with young black males, the prison is full of them. Mm-hmm. And you're looking for something that really don't exist because you're not getting into the reality, like what that cap and gown actually mean. Like, how do you go from high school graduating at 22, 23, 250,000? It's possible.
Possible. Is it likely?
But that's not the norm.
No.
You know, LeBron, he go get that big paycheck, when he signed for those shoes. But how many of those get, and I'm not here, if you're a ball player, do it. But how many? When you run the numbers, that's when the rubber meet the road.
And I'm pretty sure them young ladies, they was nice looking young women.
Oh, they were all very attractive. Yeah. They were all very attractive young ladies.
But see, that's why the prison system is filled with us sitting in it, because we're trying to reach that status by any means necessary, like what you're saying. So if we're not making it to the NBA or NFL or baseball, what's the acronym there?
MLB.
MLB. If we're not making it there, we're doing anything that we can do to reach that income, that revenue. So if now you getting into the game, or you're selling drugs or whatever you can do to get there, to get that female, because that's what it ends up being. Mm-hmm. And now the next thing you know, you in feds doing a life sentence, and she's still out there searching for someone with that income, revenue range. So yeah, we definitely have to be careful. Like young men coming out of high school, you just have to be mindful of certain attacks like this, or certain what would say systematic
messaging, advertising.
This system that's in place that can take you from school, that pipeline from school to prison pipeline. We have to be mindful of that, because we can end up in that same situation. Because we're talking about your purpose and identifying your purpose with a paycheck, understanding what your purpose is first and foremost, and understanding that paycheck and your purpose may not be aligned.
And that's even to go with what you said, that if a lot of the men did what we talked about now around reflecting and finding things you value in your purpose and not putting on the dollar, if they had a good moral compass, they wouldn't start selling drugs, because obviously they're selling drugs because they don't have a purpose. They just want to make money.
Right.
That's all it is. If they did some reflection, had a value, they would realize, do I want my life to be based on possibly getting people hooked to addictive substances? They will probably say no,
right.
But because there's no value system in place, they're just chasing the money to get the bag, to eventually get the girl. They end up doing these ridiculous things.
Right.
Yes, you dropping a song, but your song not making $1 million. So in the meantime, you slinging.
Mm-hmm. I got to get it somewhere.
Got to get. So you thinking it's music career, but it's really not a music. You slinging, and you gonna get so far. But I've been around for a long time, and the prison full of a lot of them. I have seen very few that have transitioned, took those finances and cleaned it up and put it into a legitimate business, and then move forward. Can you do it? Yes, but the numbers. Most of them wind up dead or in prison.
Or back on the streets.
dead or in prison, because you're chasing that vision of those numbers. That's not a reality.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's miseducation. Mm-hmm. You can go to college and we don't want to get miseducated. You want to get a good education if you go there. But it's the same problem with the streets. You can be miseducated, and you think you know it all, but you've been just as miseducated in the streets as you would be in a system that'll cause you to graduate with $100,000 worth of debt, with a job paying $42,000, or $200,000 worth of debt with a job making $50,000. Both of those are miseducation.
Which brings us to this next question. I think it aligns with what we're talking about. How can a recent grad stay grounded when their job doesn't align with their passion? Or we can add in that when their job don't align with their paycheck.
Actually, I think those are actually two separate things. That's actually funny when your job. Those are actually two separate things, man. So I mean, the thing, as I'm pointing out, because those are two different things. Because if your job doesn't align with your paycheck, that determines on, okay, obviously I need to look at a new job.
Or the pay that you're looking for.
Or the pay you're looking for.
Yeah.
So the thing is, that obviously could be, you might be in a job where the passion aligns, but the paycheck doesn't work. So that's a different approach. In terms of when your job doesn't align with your passion, you need to figure out two things. So again, with the way our society works, there's only one of two things you're going to do. Either your job is going to align with your passion or it's not. It's kind of black and white. And if it doesn't, you have to sit there and realize, okay, my job does not align with my passion. Am I okay with that or no? Because it's fine to not be. So first you need to ask yourself and do some reflection. Do I want my job to be based on my passion or not? If you decide you want it to, well, then you need to do some self-reflection. Okay, what are the skills? What are the options? What are the things I need in order to move from this industry to get into something that I'm passionate about? If you look and you say, my job does not have to align with my passion, which I think with the way our society is built, there's going to be a lot of jobs that people are not passionate about, that there's going to be people in those jobs. Well, then you need to realize, okay, if the job I do 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week is not providing me, value, passion, what can I do that will do that? And then that's when it comes into those things about like volunteering after work on the weekends. Because again, it's easy for your job to be your passion because you're there every day. It's both what you need to provide sustenance and life and value, but it also provides, moral value and all those things. That's great when it does. If it doesn't, you need to figure out what are things, first, obviously, what is your passion? And then what are things you can do on a voluntary basis? Perhaps on a part-time job. Maybe you can't find a full-time salary job that lies with your passion. Maybe you can find something part-time. You can find something part-time. Maybe you can find an internship that gets you experience in the field. Maybe you can find volunteer work. So I would say the real question is you determining, are you someone that wants and needs your job to align with your value set? And then from that, you can then make the determination on, am I changing jobs? Am I learning new skill sets? Am I doing things on the side that I find value?
Your brothers want to ask a spin-off question from that?
I think the main thing would be is, as he said, finding your purpose. Because you're graduating. You're not going to get the forever job. So in the meantime, to get by, you get the right now job. And you just have the dedication that I'm going to do this now so that I can sustain myself, but have that willpower and that discipline to stay on the road to be able to acquire a forever job. That's what it comes down to. Because if you're not, as we said, an entertainer or athlete, when you're graduating, chances of you landing that dream job right out of college is very small. So you're going to have to go somewhere and do some type of internship or, they say, pay your dues until you reach the job that you want. So you just got to have that motivation to know that, hey, I'm not where I need to be, but as long as I make an effort daily, I'll eventually get to where I want to be.
And what you said made me a point about what I think the overarching point in this period would be making sure what is your plan and where are you at, for example, in that plan, right? Because if you're a recent high school graduate in a job that's not passionate about, if you've had a 5 or 10 year plan that says, hey, yeah, I'm going to work a few dead-end jobs for a few years while volunteering and getting experience, and then I will get something. Well, then if you're in that job and it's not a passion, that's fine. But if you said, no, actually, I was supposed to only do this for 2 years and I'm doing it for 4, well, then you got to reevaluate yourself. So I think it comes down to like, what is your plan? And then figuring out where you are in that plan. If you're in place, cool, there's nothing to worry about. That your job is line your passion because you already, a plan for this. If you're at a point where you're supposed to be out of it, then that comes to self-reflection. Okay, I'm in this job that's not in my passion and I'm supposed to be out in 2 years and now I'm doing it for 4. What did I do wrong? What are some steps I can take so that the next 2 years I actually leave this place and I'm not here for 4, 6, 10. So
it's almost like having a destination. You drive into a destination, but there may be some. Well, let's get a little spiritual. What scriptures or spiritual discipline help you during seasons of transition?
It's actually funny. We actually kind of talked about this a little briefly. So like I said, for particularly Buddhist philosophy was something that I followed for a few years, like 14 to 17, as I'm kind of like transitioning out of being a believer, but still trying to find like a path, right? Because I think it's very innate in humans to have to, want something bigger. I think it seems to be innate in us. So I definitely followed lots of kind of Buddhist philosophies because a lot of the philosophies, as we talked about, it's a very calming approach. It's very like, hey, life moves on, lots of phrases around, the wind blows, but so long as, the tree is stable, you'll be fine. So a lot of it was like, just like remembering that like, the world is moving forward. That's fine. Change happens. It's what you do during that change and during that transition that really matters. And so that was kind of the philosophy that grounded me because as I'm, going through change where, okay, I lose a job and I'm maybe trying to, change a new job, might have to move where I'm living and things like that. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, become stressed out, start freaking out. And then when you're freaking out, start making not very smart decisions on things. So I kind of had to ground myself in like realizing that change happens. Not only does it happen, it's okay. And that it's not the change that is the problem. It's how we handle that change. That's really important. And when I got grounded in that philosophy, it became a lot easier to manage because I wasn't complaining about the fact that change was happening. I was being proactive about the fact of how can I react to the change, right? Because before taking that, every time something bad would happen, I would, I just want to I'm be honest, I complained. I then go through bouts of wanting to drink a lot. That's just the truth because I'm like, these changes are happening. I don't know how to handle them. And it's a lot and I don't know how to deal. So I'm just going to numb myself basically versus then when I grounded myself, I'm like, I don't need to be mad at these changes. The fact that they're happening is a part of life. And it's not only it's good that these changes are happening. Maybe in this moment, I can't appreciate those changes yet. But once I learn to adapt and come through them, I will understand that this is just a season of transition and that I'll come out better on the end.
It's almost like a serenity prayer, right?
Correct.
Sure. Right with that one then. How to tie into that, how would, trusting in God, trusting in the Most High, or trusting in Yahweh, how is it different in real life versus on paper? If you can.
Yeah. So on paper, I think following God's words, being an upright, moral person on paper is very easy. Whatever your religion says, whatever, it's like, you read the scripture, you in theory follow what the actions say, you be a good person. On paper, that sounds so easy. In reality, kind of what the brother said, you are going to be tested like it's nobody's business, whether it is decisions you have to make that can impact other people and you have to, reflect on, am I going to be selfish or am I going to be selfless in these situations? It's going to be situations where you are perhaps doing things that you shouldn't do. And then there becomes that, okay, what I'm doing is not illegal, but I know morally it's not right. It's very easy to just like, well, there's no law against it versus that, okay, I know maybe man's law says it's okay, but like, should I really be doing this? Should I really be doing this thing? So I would say in general, it is much harder to live the moral path, the righteous path in real life. On paper, it's very easy, especially if people are very strong in their faiths to just like, believe in Jesus, things will be good. Be of this, it'll be good. But to then go back to the scripture, faith without actions is meaningless. And I think that's sometimes where I think a lot of people miss it is that by just going to church once a week, by just reading the Bible when you're supposed to, and whatever, like that's, you're doing it. It's like, that's so baseline. I would argue, and this is me as not even a Christian, I was like, I would argue that's extremely basic that you read it and you go to church. Like, where are the actions that you're doing that God or Jesus told you to do? Where are you volunteering your time for the poor? Where are you working to better society? Like, so I would argue that it's very easy on paper to be a religious person and sound righteous. In reality, when you're tested, when you actually have to go out of your comfort zone and, you know, do things within God's works rather than just say them, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, as far as the application of the laws that's supposed to govern your life, whatever belief system that you have, you can have that faith in it 100% until it's time to test it. It's just like they say about boxers. You can get out there and shot a box and you the world champ until you get in front of somebody and you take a lick. Now it alters your reality. So it goes back to what you're saying. You have to have the discipline to want to be able to apply in your actions whatever belief system that governs who and what you are. So when you take on, in our society, a religious title, there's an expectation from society that your character is supposed to be in a particular manner. So if you're not living up to that, they're, oh, he is a Christian, but he's doing this. He's Muslim, but he's doing that. He's Hebrew and he's not doing this. Because the laws that govern these particular belief systems, the average person is familiar with. So our society feeds off of the dirt. They want to look for the negative, magnetize that to the masses of people. And this is why particular reality shows and TV shows are so popular, because they're exploiting the weakness or the misfortune of other people. So as an individual, you have to decide. You know, one of the scriptures that I believe that should govern everybody's lifestyle is Proverbs 4:26, which says, ponder the path of your feet. So, you know, ponder means to think about, to ruminate on, to continually to have at the forefront of your mind. Your feet, you know, is your foundation. So what is your foundation values? What do you say, yeah, I will do this, but I won't do that right there? So you have to ponder that, because as we grow, our value system changes.
Right.
You know, when you like things at 15, you may not like them at 25 anymore. So as you're constantly growing and your values are constantly growing, you have to constantly realign yourself with who you are that day and what you're becoming. So you have to constantly look at your foundation, because it's shifting as you take in new information. So that new information alters your perspective, which alters your reality. So people are like, man, you changing up on me. Yes, I'm constantly changing, because I'm constantly taking in new information, which is going to cause me to change. So you have to put what your belief is in action, because you're not who you are because of what you say. You're who you are because of what you do. When you look at the animal kingdom, the animal don't walk up and say, oh yeah, I'm a lion. You just look at his characteristics and you watch him in his day-to-day life and you say, oh, that's a lion, that's an eagle, that's a tiger, because of what they're doing, not what they're saying. It's what they're doing. So it's the same thing with humanity. And this is why the scriptures tell you that your faith without works is worthless. You can believe something, but if I'm not putting any effort in it, it's not going to happen. So you have to have that belief that I got to put in work. I have to. I don't care what area. You don't become a great sports player if you don't practice.
All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to a commercial break. But when we come back, I do want to continue on this topic. I was going to go to some real news, but I do want to complete this here. There's 3 questions left I want us to be able to share with any graduate or parents that are tuning in to the show today. So let's go to a quick commercial break.
Because Scott and Associates always treats me like family, I refer my family to them. So when preparing for my taxes and I know exactly what to bring in coming in, it makes the process so much easier. Anyone should hire Scott and Associates because they are professional, respectful, and very knowledgeable. And with all of my heart, I can always count on them.
What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zodi toothpaste. Zodi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zodi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zodi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at noystore.com.
All right, welcome back. Normally we would transition into some community or real news, but we want to continue on the topic today because I think it's very important because a lot of youth have graduated, class of 2025, and just want to put some good information out there that they can tune into and hopefully use moving forward. So just getting into the next part of this show and the questioning, it's about encouragements for grads. And one of the questions that I had was, what's one lie culture tells graduates that you'll love to correct?
A lie. There's so many. There's so many little things as you get older and you read and learn that how many misconceptions there's so many, honestly. Particularly in context of grads kind of preparing for their life. I think I would tell them that it's okay to not have everything figured out. And that's fine. Again, to kind of go back to the conversation we're having, I think a lot of social media gives them the idea that right after they graduate, if not a few years later, you need to have it made, man. You should be making $1 million already. I mean, what is it? This actually made. I came across a video on TikTok one time. And this dude apparently is a big channel and apparently people like him. He said, if you're a man in his mid-20s and you don't have a Lamborghini bought outright, you're a failure. I was just like, okay, I understand this is partially rage content. I get it. But then I look at some of his other videos that he talks about all these things if you're a man under 30 and you don't have 100 and you're not making 100K, you haven't made it. There's all these perceptions to have everything very early on. And then what happens to a lot of young people, which I think this is partially why a lot of our youth have more mental health issues than older generations, is that they're exposed to all these things that are making them self-doubt themselves in ways that I don't think other generations have had to. I can't, like I said, I kind of grew up right at the tail end of the technology generation, so I experienced some of it. But I can't even imagine being 7 and you're already on YouTube 24/7. How warped your reality on things will be. I'm old enough now to where I still watch things. I'm entertained by them that I find kind of a little dumb, but I'm able to discern that okay, this is just entertainment. I know it's not real. If you're a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old watching those things, you're not going to be able to discern that this is not real, that this is not statistically relevant to your life. And so I think that's why so many young people are so depressed or so anxious, because they're like, oh man, I'm 22 and I'm only making 30. And so that means I'm a failure in life. And so then you start getting all these medications and getting into drugs and drinking to ease that form of, oh, I'm not worth it. I didn't make it. So you gotta, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was so in it. What was the initial question? You threw me off. I got that shit because I got a little threw me off.
What's one lie?
The lie. Yeah, there's the lie that you gotta have everything. You gotta have everything made right after or very soon after you graduate. Life is a process. it takes, what is it? The constant phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
Patience is a virtue. There's so many old, which kind of goes back to all the cultures for thousands of years have understood that how important patience. That's why it's in all the religious textbooks. That's why it's in all the philosophy books, how important it is to not rush, to use discernment and judgment, and to wait. And a lot of young people do not know how to do that anymore. And I would implore you, learn to be patient. Work hard, work for your goals, have all that. But the fact that you don't have it all now is not a problem. It's okay.
Okay. All right.
I got another one for some encouragement. If you can throw another one at you, if you could get a 1 minute, like a voice memo to the class of 2025 or like an elevator pitch, what would you say to them?
Oh man, class of 2025. The period you're in at your life right now is the most impactful and important period you're going to go through. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, you're just starting your career or getting that opportunity. Utilize it. Gain experience. Talk to people. Get mentors. Like, don't just be get outside your comfort zone, right? That is going to be extremely important for many people to do. So take advantage of that to then go on the financial aspect of it. You're young now. Start saving now. Start investing, even if it's just $50, $100. Start investing and start gaining knowledge on that. Start gaining knowledge in that. On the flip side, outside of obviously, get experience, explore the world, learn about yourself, but stay grounded. Have a plan in place. It's okay to deviate sometimes. It's okay to explore new things, but stay grounded in a plan and make sure that make sure that your new experiences and things you're trying don't make you fall astray. And then lastly, I would just say, not stay off social media, because I understand that's impossible in this day and age, but just have a little discernment and judgment with the type of social media you watch, how often you watch it, and how you let it influence your mind and your mindset.
I agree, because that means everything. Content bad about social media, and you're gonna find probably more negative stuff than it is good. But find that which can help you grow, and then focus on that. Subscribe to that. That's why
block
we try
out
to
all the mess.
Right. That's why we try to put good content out there. Subscribe to the channels that's going to help build your character. To direct you in your purpose. So it can be used for a good thing, but we know there's a lot of negative stuff that's out there when it comes to social media. So great points. I love that. Anything on that before I get to the last question? Okay. So the last thing here, what truth carried you through your most confusing post-grad season? What truth?
For me, because it ties to that situation I was going to, the truth that we are all valuable, unique individuals worthy of happiness. That truth got me through my hard times, allowed me not to deviate from my path, because I remembered that the goals that I'm working for, I am worth those goals. So just the truth that, like, listen, your life might be hard right now. You might be in a circus. Obviously I have my privileges, right? A lot of people do not have those privileges. Your life, because of that circumstance you're in, understandably, I can understand why you don't feel like you're valued, right? Maybe you're not in a job that's providing you meaning. Maybe you don't have a large amount of family connections. There's lots of reasons why you might feel that way, but everyone should remember that you are valuable and worth it. For my religious groups out there, we all know we're made in God's image, right? He wouldn't make you if they didn't have a reason. For my spiritual groups out there, we all know that the randomness of science, the fact that you exist and you are a conscious being able to discern your consciousness, you're special. So regardless of what belief sets you come from, like, just recognize your value and utilize that value to make your life better, the people's lives around you better. And you are worth it. You're worth happiness. You're worth friends. You're worth all of those things, regardless of what period or transition or season you might be in right now.
I love it. I love it. I kind of look at it from a standpoint of illusion versus reality. And we have to determine our reality and be able to distinguish the two, because sometimes we live in an illusion and we think that's our reality. but we have to be able to distinguish that. Great points. I love the points. Anything you brothers want to add to that?
Yes. A truth that constantly is at the forefront of my mind is I look at the weather. Every day is not going to be a sunny day. It's going to rain some days, it's going to snow some days, it's going to hail some days. But what I do notice is the rain, the hail, and the snow only last for a particular time frame. There's always more sunny days in the forecast than it is what we deem the bad weather. So no matter what I'm going through, I know it's only temporary. It has an expiration date. The good is going to float back up to the top because that's just how life is. You're going to have more good than bad days. So don't just allow that badness to put you in a despondent or depressed state to where you feel that it's never going to come to an end.
Yeah. And don't let negative thoughts define you. I think you alluded to this before when we were just talking about some of the things that that may have brought doubt to you that you was unsure about. And I think a lot of times our youth go through those moments when they have those doubts or those fears, and they let that define them. And then they're not doing what they should be doing in their season. So now, 5 or 10 years later, what you could have did 10 years prior, you're seeking to do it at that time. And that's a setback of, itself. So I love the points that you made today. And I love all the points that my brothers shared in and came in on. I think we're getting to that time that we get ready to close out. I'm trying to see which way I'm going to start. I'm going to start over here. I'll go around. You can see I'm going to start with you, sir.
As always, listeners, it was great to be able to espouse certain information to y'all. So you graduates, get you a plan together. Stay dedicated to that plan no matter how many hard days that you have. And understand that life is beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And I would say that for all of those who at that point in graduates, knowing your calling on the path, most time I lay it out there, but it's your journey. Remember that it's the journey, and it's for you to live part of life. Part of what was given is for you to travel that journey and experience and make the most out of it. There's no dead ends. You can always build a road. The Most High is not going to put you there to tear you down. He's actually putting you out there to be an extension of himself, that understanding that you have a purpose. And you may not have all the answers today, but this is the beginning.
Just want to say thank you all again for inviting me. Always a great time. To our graduates, you are our future. Keep working on your passions. Keep learning. Stay positive. Try not to doubt yourself so much. Lots of society and social media will make you. So try to stay positive. Stay ground yourself in whatever value system you believe in. Stay grounded in that and just keep focused on your purpose and keep working toward it.
And just a few announcements before we get ready to close out. Mark your calendar for the second annual Trade Expo. Want you graduates to come out to this here. It's all about getting trades. So join us October the 25th this year, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We definitely want to share some great information. We have resources out there. So stay tuned into Live Talking. We'll give you more information about that. And just keep in mind, from this day moving forward, Live Talk did have changed their time. We're now Saturday. The first and third Saturday of the month will be airing our show. And I leave you with this here. Your calling can evolve. What stays the same is your identity in the Most High and your purpose to reflect Him wherever. I mean, when I say this, wherever you go. So keep that in mind. And I like to say, from the host, Peace and Prosperity, and from Live Talk, we are out. Thank you for watching Live Talk. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit on the notification button so that you can see more videos like this. You want to join the show? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook and Instagram at Arthur Jeremiah. And visit the website, thenoystore.com, to pick up your copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name.